Nuzlocke, a type of Pokemon challenge with self-imposed hardcore rules. Though I've played Pokemon since before I could read, I've never completed these challenges. Until now. But before we get started, here are the rules if you aren't familiar with the Nuzlocke. Okay, here are the traditional Nuzlocke rules. And at the end of this video, if any Pokemon faint, they're attached to a Butterfree, and we get to watch them fly away to a better life, and hopefully, a better trainer. To get this Nuzlocke noob started, I select Squirtle, who will be named Shellshocker after the Blastoise in Pokemon the first movie. That trainer and the Shellshocker were just too cool. We can later see that Shellshocker is calm, which means it has a high special defense, which is great in Kanto. And we start our first Nuzlocke battle in the same fashion of starting our first Pokemon game, a tutorial rival battle. It's the usual fare of basic tackles, and Shellshocker narrowly avoids a defeat here, nearly resulting in my first wipe and my first restart. And now with that battle completed, I feel like I'm officially starting my first ever Nuzlocke. I am full of excitement and anxiety. My first wild encounter is on Route 1, and it's a Pidgey. I realized a bit too late that entering a battle with 8 HP and attempting to catch a Pokemon is reckless. We're nearly KO'd, but I cross my fingers and throw a Pokeball, thankfully catching this Pidgey. Another embarrassing close kiss with a wipe. Anyway, meet Miss Burb. Route 22 is a careful Mankey named 8-Man. Route 2 is a modest Rattata named Smoothtail, and my Viridian Forest encounter Weedle was accidentally KO'd when I swapped to Miss Burb in an attempt to weaken it. Brock, the first Kanto gym leader, is up now. I open with Shellshocker into Geodude, and Shellshocker is able to get the one-shot with Water Gun. Out now is Onix, and I decided just randomly to switch to 8-Man and Low Kick. Onix hangs on by a smidge, and a single Karate Chop earns me a Boulder Badge. Brock's rocks were never going to be an issue with Shellshocker and 8-Man, more like karate chopping wet paper. Now we're on to Route 3, and we catch a Spearow named Miss Burb, who has a quiet nature. In Mount Moon, since I've never used a Paris for anything other than being a chainsaw, I use repels to catch one. Meet Husky, since it's like a husk but also wide. And just before Cerulean, we grab a Sandshrew. Before we progress to the Cerulean gym, we have our first real rival battle. I open with Miss Otherburb, who is a monster, against Pidgeotto. As if it had something to prove, it nails 5 Fury attacks on turn 1, then another 3 Fury attacks to get the KO. Gyarados Rattata gets similar Fury attack treatment, so it's an easy knockout. Out now is Abra, which is a safe switch to Miss Burb to easily KO and be set up for Bulbasaur. Once Bulbasaur is out, Miss Burb gets a strong gust, but Bulbasaur is able to get off a sleep powder, and on the next turn a Vine Whip. We stay asleep, and the next Vine Whip gets a critical hit, so I switch to Husky to eat the incoming Vine Whip. But then Husky also gets put to sleep. Thankfully a short wake up, and we hit a weak scratch, but then it's back to sleep. And this continues for a while, but Husky is able to seal the KO, and we are able to secure our first real rival battle, all without any deaths, and this is feeling great. Before we go to Misty, we need to complete the Nugget Bridge and help Bill out of his computer. But before that, let's show a random battle just to give an update about how well my first Nuzlocke battle is going. This battle is coming from Nugget Bridge, trainer number 5, and his name is Camper Ethan. I have Smoothtail in the lead, and Ethan opens with a Mankey. My poor Smoothtail was knocked out because my smooth brain was thinking Mankey wouldn't KO with a single hit. At least Miss Otherburb, who has evolved into a Fearow, is able to avenge my fallen friend. Not a huge loss, since Smoothtail probably wasn't a guts carrier. Route 24 is a Caterpie, and now we have everything we need to be ready for the carrier, which is the Butterfree for the end of the video. Route 25 is a Weedle named Beehiven, although I'm not sure if this is Nuzlocke legal, but since this is my first, we'll allow. And now we're ready for Misty, and I decided to open with Miss Otherburb against Misty. She was able to KO Staryu after a couple of Fury attacks, and Starmie is out now and deals a significant amount of damage with Water Pulse, and we return with a Fury attack. Another Water Pulse from Starmie appears to be in crit range, so I swap to Shellshocker and KO with a couple of bites. With that addressed, we can pick up a few more encounters. Route 5 is a lonely Meowth named Geo. Route 6 is a hardy Bellsprout named Bell C. Route 11 is a sassy Drowsy named SP Demon, short for sleep paralysis, and I'm very happy with the nature on this one. And from Diglett's Cave, of course, we catch a Diglett. Now we can continue and we're on to the SSN rival fight. I had to shift my team because I was already over the level cap, so I open with SP Demon into Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto goes for a quick attack, and I put it to sleep with Hypnosis. On the next turn, a Confusion hits and confuses the bird. A couple of confusions, and Not My Burb hitting itself is great for SP Demon's debut. Pidgeotto does nail down a quick attack before finally going down, and out now is Raticate. Raticate nails a nasty Hyper Fang, and Hypnosis misses. Sharps has great defense, so we switch it in there. Raticate uses Tail Whip, lowering my defense as a Poison Sting does a little damage, but it does get the poison. I switch to 8-Man on a Hyper Fang and get a KO with a Karate Chop. Out now is Kadabra. I don't have a good counter here, so I swapped to Geo, who takes more than half damage from Confusion. If I had played this just a little bit better, I probably could have gotten a bite off. Lime K is sent out and Confusion is devastating. Lime K does survive, so I get some great damage with Dig, but this results in another KO. Sharps is sent out and can get the final KO with Scratch. And with that scary Kadabra defeated, out now is Ivysaur, and I swap to Bellsea and get hit with a Vine Whip, and then get put to sleep by Sleep Powder. After a couple of turns of Vine Whip, it's our turn to put Ivysaur to sleep. I set up a Growth, but Ivysaur puts Bellsea to sleep and deals too much damage with Vine Whip. Bellsea is able to stand for another turn and put Ivysaur to sleep and get a few Vine Whips off. With Bellsea near death, I swap to Sharps, ready to have my first sacrifice, so White Man can hit a Fury attack. Thankfully, Ivysaur misses a Poison Powder, so I can get another round of Fury attack off. On the next turn, Poison Powder lands, but it's too late. Fury Swipes are able to KO this green monster. But now we have our first severe loss. Geo, Sharps, and Lime K, and the latter two were lost just before Surge when they would have been extremely useful. With this loss, I make my way to the best Kanto visitors attraction to cheer myself up. The SSN Puke Bucket. It's Lieutenant Surge time, and Beehiven opens against Voltorb. Voltorb goes for Screech and misses, a String Shot drops the speed. A couple of turns with Twin Needle is enough to get the KO on Voltorb, with Beedrill taking minimal damage in the process. Out now is Pikachu, so another String Shot and another round of Twin Needle to get the KO. And out is Lieutenant Surge's ace Raichu. I go for String Shot, Raichu for Double Team. Twin Needle deals just under half as Raichu sets up another Double Team. The next Twin Needle misses as Raichu gets a Thunder Wave to slow my Beehiven, and a Shockwave deals decent damage and we're paralyzed. Then tragically, the next Shockwave was a critical hit, so Beehiven won't be Hiving with us anymore. I send in SP Demon and he's hit with Shockwave, then misses his first Confusion. The second one lands but deals little damage. Raichu is able to hit a strong Shockwave again, but thankfully SP Demon lands a Hypnosis. I swap to 8-Man, and Surge uses a full heal, which I've never seen before. 8-Man misses a Karate Chop and is hit by Thunder Wave, and on the next turn, a Shock from the Raichu and a Karate Chop gets the KO. And we get a few more encounters. Route 10, we get a quirky Voltorb named Flipper. Rock Tunnel is a Geodude named Go Lemonade, and spoiler alert, Go Lemonade is never evolved, so the pun is kinda missed here. And Route 8 was a Vulpix, but I wasn't prepared for it to roar, so now it's gone. And with this Vulpix miss and the other team members lost due to negligence, I realized I need to take things a bit more seriously. I prepped for the battle against Rival in Lavender Town, where I started paying attention to what moves opponents could have, what they saw for their switch-ins, and I needed to think a few steps ahead. I needed Future Sight as well as Kadabra did. I knew that Gyarados had no Water Stab at this time, and the biggest threat was Thrash, which Go Lemonade should be able to easily absorb. So I open with Go Lemonade into Pidgeotto, who can tank a Quick Attack and nail a Rock Throw, and on the next turn Pidgeotto hits a Wing Attack, and Rock Throw from Go Lemon is able to get the KO. Gyarados sends in Ivysaur, so I make a switch to Miss Other Burb, and Ivysaur hits a resisted Vine Whip. I use Peck to deal more than half damage as Ivysaur puts Miss Other Burb to sleep. She stays asleep for 4 turns, and Ivysaur can chip with Razor Leaf. Once my sleepy Burb can wake up, it's a simple KO with Peck. Out now is Gyarados, and battling Gyarados, I send in Go Lemonade, who is able to stand in on the Thrash, and then set up a Defense Curl. Gyarados does go for Bite, which does flinch, but on the next turn we can deal some great damage with Rock Throw. Thrash Confusion caused Gyarados to hit itself, and we can KO with a Rock Throw, and Gary sends out a Kadabra now. So it's a hard switch to Shell Shocker, who has the special defense to take the Confusion on the switch. Kadabra goes for Kinesis, and a Bite deals around 70% damage. Kadabra then goes for Disable, which misses, leading to a KO with another Bite. Gyarados sends out his final, which is Growlithe, who goes down with a single critical hit Water Gun. With this taken care of, we can go to Route 4, and we get another Vulpix, who didn't hate me. So I'm happy to add Foxorus to the team, and we're now ready for Erica. I open with Fearow against Victreebel, and Peck does around half damage. Victreebel connects with a Stun Spore, which means on the next turn this Flytrap can outspeed and do some damage with Acid. Then Miss Other Burb is unable to attack through the paralysis, and Victreebel goes for Acid, which crits, but we're able to hit through the paralysis and KO. Erica sends in Tangela, and I swap to Foxorus for a debut battle. Tangela went for Ingrain on the switch, and on the next turn a Flamethrower gets the KO, leading to Vileplume being sent out. A Flamethrower does around half, and Vileplume hits a Sleep Powder. I swap to Miss Burb and take damage from Acid, and a Wing Attack is enough to get the KO on Vileplume. Erica is finally defeated. We pit stop to add Pinsir from Celadon, and up now we take care of the Rocket Hideout Giovanni. Burb Firo is left out due to being over the level cap, but 8-Man was able to solo Giovanni through a single low kick on Onyx and Rhyhorn. The low kick wasn't enough to KO the Kangaskhan, but a brick break comes through and finishes everything up. After this, I caught the Snorlax on Route 16, and we progressed to Silph Rival Battle. I open with Electrode, who now knows Thunderbolt thanks to the Celadon Game Corner. Gyarados' Pidgeot goes for a quick attack, contracting paralysis from our Staticky Flipper. And since a Thunderbolt from Flipper is not enough to get the KO, Pidgeot is able to get another quick attack before being knocked out. Gyarados has weird AI, so we send in Gyarados, who is easily taken down with another Thunderbolt. Out now is Growlithe, and I consider switching to Foxorus the Ninetales for Flash Fire, but I'm seeing Takedown and swap to Blastoise. Growlithe does go for Takedown, dealing little damage, and Shell Shocker is then able to KO with a single Water Pulse. Out now is the fully evolved starter Venusaur, and I switch to Foxorus on the incoming Sleep Powder, and on the next turn is able to fire off a decent Flamethrower dealing just over half, which means another Flamethrower is able to get the KO. Lastly is his Alakazam, and a switch to SP Demon, and we're able to KO with a Shadow Ball. This was a revenge battle, against him nearly wiping me. With Gyarados defeated, we can now progress to his dada, Giovanni. I decided to switch things up a bit and open with Go Lemonade into Nidorino. Nidorino of course outspeeds and hits a Fury attack, and Go Lemonade decides it needs to prove itself worthy and hits a magnitude 10. What an absolute unit. Giovanni then sends in Nidoking, and as much as I want to stay in, I switch to SP Demon, getting hit with a Tail Whip. On the next turn, Nido goes for a Poison Sting, and SP Demon is able to get off a decent amount of damage with a Psychic. The turn following is another Tail Whip, and SP Demon gets the KO with Psychic. Kangaskhan is in, and another Tail Whip. A single Brick Break is not enough for the KO, but goes for another Tail Wag action. That leaves Geo with Rhyhorn as his final, and Shell Shocker can easily clean things up from here. With Saffron saved, we can fight Sabrina. I open with Hypno against Kadabra, who tried to set up a Calm Mind, but Shadow Ball is able to easily snag the KO. Venomoth is next, and I switch to Foxorus on a resisted Leech Life. Foxorus is able to outspeed and KO with a single Flamethrower. Sabrina sends Mr. Mime, who goes for Calm Mind after Foxorus uses Flamethrower. Foxorus hits another Flame to bring Mr. Mime in the red, and Psybeam does little damage. Sabrina uses a Hyper Potion on the Mime, which is better than it being used on the Alakazam in the back, so I go for another Flamethrower. Mr. Mime does go for an additional Psybeam, but Flamethrower is getting Mr. Mime now in the red, leading to Sabrina using a final potion. Fearing for Foxorus' life, I switch to Doc the Snorlax, who gets confused by the incoming Psybeam. I go for Body Slam, but Doc decides to hit itself in confusion. Another hit from Psybeam, and a Body Slam is finally able to connect to KO the Mr. Mime. Sabrina sends out the dreaded Alakazam, and I switch to Hypno. Alakazam does go for Calm Mind on the switch. I select Shadow Ball and hope it's enough for the KO. Alakazam outspeeds and does very little damage, and Shadow Ball connects, and a lucky crit ensures that we do actually KO here. With Sabrina defeated, it's off to the Safari Zone. But first, I want to check on this little crab, who seems to have moved around and redecorated this place. Looking good, little buddy. Now we're on to the Safari Zone, known for runaways, and our encounter here was an Execute, who after the first ball, runs away. Against Koga, I open with Hypno and a Coughing. SP Demon outspeeds and gets the KO with a single Psychic. Then Muck, who isn't a one-shot, sets up a Minimize, but a second Psychic hits and KOs this shrinking sludge. Koga didn't learn his lesson and sends out another Coughing to get KO'd by Psychic. Out now is Koza's Ace Wheezing, and a Psychic is almost enough to KO this inhaler-inducing menace. But since it's not, this Wheezing hits a Smokescreen into SP Demon. Koga uses a Hyper Potion to bring it back to full health, and a Psychic misses. A turn later, Psychic connects to get the KO. Koga's defeated and without even taking damage. And with Koga defeated, we can use Surf to get a few more encounters. Fuchsia City, I pick up a Slowpoke named Slaybra. This name sounded cooler in my head. At the power plant, I get a Magnemite named Tripolar. Route 21 is a Tentacool named Legs. Route 15 is a Ditto named Mewgoo. Route 19 is a Horsey named 1000 Cast, as it felt like it took 1000 casts to encounter this little seahorse. Since the other Pokemon was a Gyarados and I didn't want to use it, and already had the Krabby. And speaking of, let's check on this little guy. Prior to fighting Blaine, I decided that my Cinnabar encounter would be Aerodactyl, who is brave and named Amber after the fossil. Getting to Blaine involves us answering some random questions that if we failed on, YouTube would be devastated. We're on to Hot Blaine himself, and I could open with Shell Shocker and absolutely sweep, but I think instead I'll open with SP Demon. So it's now SP Demon versus Growlithe, starting with Hypnosis, and then on the next turn we're able to nearly one-shot with Psychic, getting the special defense drop. Leaving Growlithe with a smidge of health, Growlithe fires a weak Fire Blast, and on the next turn, Blaine heals, but with a special defense drop, the sad pup Growlithe is out. Arcanine is sent out next, and this grown-up pup is able to deal decent damage with Fire Blast. But using Hypnosis, and it's put to sleep too. Fearing another crit, and my love for this Hypno, I swap to Graveler. Arcanine stays asleep on the switch, and it doesn't wake up before it's critically hit by Earthquake. Ponyta is out next and gets a Fire Blast, which also burns, but Earthquake is still enough to get the KO. Then the bigger horse is out next and fires another Fire Blast, dealing more damage, but it doesn't get the KO, so it has to eat another Earthquake. I switch to Dock when Blaine uses a potion on Rapidash, and Rapidash goes for Bounce, and I miss the Body Slam. On the next turn, Dock takes minimal damage and gets a critical headbutt, earning us the Volcano Badge. We take a quick tour of the Sevi Islands to find some lost kid, and I bet her name is Lostel. Oh wait, it actually is. I go to catch a Venonat. Well, actually I don't. I ran out of Pokeballs, and you know what happens if you use your only Master Ball. Your next encounter is a guaranteed shiny. So we defeated the Hypno, traumatizing this child with a single headbutt, and now we're onto Giovanni for the badge. Since Belt Holder of the Poliwhirl has been a box warmer, I decided a good debut battle is against Giovanni's Rhyhorn. Opening with Surf is a one-hit KO, and Dugtrio is sent out next, and another Surf is another Oko. I go for Hypnosis and it misses, and an Earthquake does enough damage to make me want to switch to Amber on the incoming Earthquake, and since there isn't much Nidoqueen can do, I go for Ancient Power, which does get a lucky crit, but an unlucky Poison proc poisons my Amber. I stay in for another Ancient Power, and Amber eats a Body Slam, and since this will drag on, I swap to Shell Shocker and get the KO with Surf. Nidoking is out now, and a Mystic Water boosted Surf seals the KO, leaving just Rhyhorn to be eaten by a single Surf as well, winning us the Earth Badge. With Giovanni defeated, now we can battle his son again. I open with Tripolar into Pidgeot, and I forgot to teach Tripolar Thunderbolt, but a Spark is enough to KO this burb after hitting a weak Quick Attack. Growlithe is out next, so I switch to Go Lemonade as this Fire Dog sets up in Agility. Growlithe is a weak Flamethrower and is down to a single Earthquake. Gyarados sends out Venusaur, so in comes Foxorus on a Razor Leaf, but it deals just a little damage. Flamethrower isn't enough to get the KO, and thankfully, a second Flamethrower does. Rhyhorn is out, and I switch to Blastoise on a soft takedown, then a Surf to get the KO here as well. Gyarados sends out Gyarados, and I use Protect to see if it wants to Hydro Pump, but it goes for Leer. Either way, Tripolar isn't exactly a safe switch here. I use Bite a couple of times, and then Gyarados goes for Rain Dance. I start using Surf, and Gyarados hits a weak Hydro Pump, and then another Surf to finally get the KO. And out now is Alakazam, who opens with a Disable as I switch to Dock. I forgot to teach Dock Shadow Ball, and Kazam goes for Calm Mind, so I just use Body Slam, which is actually just short of getting the knockout. It does leave Kazam with Paralysis, but due to Synchronize, Dock catches it as well. Disable is used and now Body Slam won't work, and I swap to Hypno on a resisted Psychic, and SP Demon does no Shadow Ball, so we get the KO. On Route 23 I could have caught a Goldeen, but decided to skip, my team is pretty stacked. The encounter for Victory Road is Machop, named Champa. Champa has a mild nature, but his ability is Guts. And as we review our box for one last time, let's take a check on this Krabby. Beautiful work here, friend. I'm glad I could keep you, and it's a shame I couldn't battle with you. But here's the Elite Four team, and we're all ready for battle, and ready to prove that we can take care of business. With a fight against Lorelei, I open with Tripolar to get things started. Thunderbolt is enough to one-hit KO all the way until we get to the bulky Lapras. Lapras survives and nails a Confuse Ray into Tripolar. If Lapras goes for Surf and gets a critical hit, this would have been the end of our lovely magnets. But it's not, so we can move on. Jinx is out now and Thunderbolt does not get the KO again, so Jinx goes for a Lovely Kiss. But since there's not much that Jinx can do, I stay in on a couple of heavy Ice Punches. I switch once it looks like we're near the crit range. Foxorus comes in and gets the KO with Flamethrower. Against Bruno, my brain said to play shenanigans, so I open with Belt Holder. I use Hypnosis to put Onyx to sleep and then set up a Belly Drum. With some leftovers recovery, we can heal back into the green, then a Brick Break against the rock, another rock, and on the next turn, Hitmonchan is sent out. Belt Holder outspeeds Hitmonchan, so another KO. Hitmonlee does outspeed but misses a Mega Kick, and Belt Holder proves worthy of his title. Bruno sends out his ace Machamp, who doesn't outspeed but is down to another Brick Break. Bruno has been defeated, and now we're up to Agatha. Agatha opens with Gengar and myself with Dock. Gengar goes for double team and my Shadow Ball misses. On the next turn, Gengar repeats this, but this time Shadow Ball connects. This leads to Agatha to heal and another Shadow Ball misses. Gengar goes for another double team, but this Shadow Ball hits. On the next turn, a confused Ray connects to Doc, but a Shadow Ball finally lands for the KO. Golbat is sent up now, and to shake the confusion, I have a safe switch to Tripolar, who doesn't even blink if it can against the Air Cutter. Golbat goes for Bite, but Thunderbolt gets the KO here. Haunter is out now, and I'm scared for Mean Look, so I switch to Doc, but Haunter goes for Curse. Haunter then goes for Mean Look, but Shadow Ball frees us. Arbok comes in and has Intimidate, so it's back to Tripolar. Sludge Bomb does literally nothing here, and we fire a strong Thunderbolt as this backwards Cobra goes for Screech. The final Thunderbolt gets the KO, and the Ace Gengar is sent in, and I decided Thunderbolt is safe, and my goodness does it do some damage here. Gengar's Hypnosis misses, so another Thunderbolt gets the KO. With Aga defeated, we can now stare down the Dragon Master Lance. I again open with Tripolar, who gets an immediate KO against Gyarados. Dragonair is out. As I swap to Shell Shock, Rick goes for Safeguard. Ice Beam does not get the KO, but Dragonair only goes for Dragon Rage. On the next turn, Lance heals, and I realize I should have used Withdrawal here, but used an Ice Beam so we can seal the deal. Next is another Dragonair, and since another Ice Beam doesn't get the KO, it uses Thunder Wave. On the next turn, I try Ice Beam again, and of course Dragonair outspeeds and hits an Outrage, but this little Dragon Noodle is going down. Dragonite is out now, and goes for Safeguard again. Ice Beam does not get the single hit KO, and Citrus does heal Dragonite from the red. On the next turn, Dragonite goes for Wing Attack, and we can get the KO with Ice Beam. Last is Aerodactyl. I swap back to Tripolar as Aerodactyl misses its attack. Aerodactyl does go for Ancient Power and no boost, and we get the KO with a Thunderbolt. In the final battle, Gyarados himself. Gyarados opens with Pidgeot, so my new best friend Tripolar gets a Thunderbolt for the KO. Arcanine is out next, so I swap to Shell Shocker on the Flamethrower. Arcanine goes Extreme Speed, but Surf gets the KO. Venusaur is sent in next, so I swap again to Foxorus as it sets up a growth. I go Flamethrower ready to wait for a 2-hitter, but Foxorus gets a lucky crit. Rhyhorn is in now, so I swap to Belt Holder, who takes a large amount of damage from an Earthquake, and a single Surf is enough to get the KO. And Alakazam is next. I switch Doc in on the Psychic. Doc is hit with another Psychic, but a Shadow Ball gets the KO. Gyarados sends out Gyarados as his final. I want to switch Magneton in, but I don't know if Gyarados wants to go for Hydro Pump or Thrash again. I imagine in this case the rolls give Thrash more damage. So with my money there, I cross my fingers and switch. Even though Belt Holder has Water Absorb and would love the free HP, thankfully he goes Thrash as I went into Tripolar. So a Thunderbolt gets our victory, and our first ever Nuzlocke completed. What a ride, and I'll see why people enjoy this so much. It puts some good wrinkles on the old smooth brain here. And with that, let's attach our fallen friends to be released to a new land and their new trainer. Smoothtail, Lime K, Beehiven, Sharps, and Geo. Good luck with your next battles, and thank you.